Yo guys, welcome to The Last Lap. Don't forget to drop a lovely, juicy 5-star rating if you're watching on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hope you enjoy, and let's get into it.
And I think we've got to start with certain team and papaya, don't we? We've got to start with it. Start with a negative.
Do we know anyone on this show that might know someone driving for that team who are having
I don't know. Do we?
Howler?
Do we?
Do we?
Do we?
How does it mean? It's you.
Oh, yeah, Lewis. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, you, bro. Yeah, no. Yes, depression, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think it's... I don't know, because obviously Bahrain was terrible last season.
True.
If you're a McLaren
Brake issues.
fan. Absolutely shambolic. Finished, I think, 18th and 19th because there was one retirement.
Yeah, they had a shocker in the race as well.
Absolute stinker.
Probably only ahead of Latifi, which is never great.
Yeah, which is never a good sign, if we're going to be honest. It's been, I don't think there's been a single team that's had like an absolute howler, as in they might genuinely not finish the first race of the season sort of levels, or like they're 3 seconds off the pace or whatever. In terms of the most disappointing from a general pace perspective and also reliability perspective, I would probably say it's McLaren. I mean, least laps of anyone, right?
Yes, and that's the thing, like the only team that I can think... I feel like every team, someone's had something somewhat positive to say about them, and the general consensus has been positive. Apart from AlphaTauri, but then AlphaTauri did do the most laps of anyone overall, so that's a positive. McLaren seems like the only team, and maybe it's because of the expectations we have of McLaren, but they were very downbeat at the launch. I mean, we were, like
we mentioned at the time, it was very sort of like, well, it's not terrible, and we were like, well, you probably shouldn't even be saying terrible at all, really.
That's the thing. Like, they had to re-record that part.
Really?
Because, they had to record that because they recorded it, and then there was some issue in that to re-record the first section when Zach Brown and Stella come up in front of the car.
Right.
So he was so good he said it twice. And it's...
Did he change anything for the second take? Like maybe he sounded a little bit more upbeat?
No, to be honest,
even the cameras were unreliable.
Yeah, exactly. That's what. Yeah, not looking good, McLaren. Big facility, but that's what I mean. That's what immediately came to mind. That one I've been sending that to.
I think it's a bit odd because McLaren, I think, is a team that all of us are fans of. I'm a big fan of the papaya. I like this kind of new era, especially after their struggle years, with Honda and like Alonso and the way they came. I think a lot of fans, they've got a lot of brand new fans, obviously courtesy of Lando as well. But I think it's just disappointing not to see them kind of make that jump because, again, after 2021, when you look at where Ferrari and McLaren were, they were kind of on a similar level, fighting for that best of the rest. And why was it not McLaren to take that big step up, to potentially fight for race wins, and where they are now after disappointment in 2022? And again, I'm totally with you guys. Like, I wasn't there, but from everything that I've heard, they were so downbeat, even right from the launch. Like, we're not really happy. We're already looking at like the upgrades that we're going to bring. So it's not what you want to hear as a McLaren fan. So it's hopefully, again, looking at last season, like you said, they had a horrible Bahrain 2022 with like their brake issues, but they did get better as the seasons progressed. And ultimately, if they had a driver, not say as good as Lando, but performing better than Ricciardo, they could have finished fourth. And then we're having a different conversation, last year. We're saying they finished best of the rest. So they're kind of still on that, kind of upward trajectory. So it's not all over, but you don't want to hear a team going, we're already not happy with our car, looking for like our first upgrade. So we're going to see them, I suppose, at the beginning of the season.
Testing isn't everything, but like if you wanted McLaren to make the step, they probably haven't. That's the reality. Like,
no.
They definitely haven't.
Because when you say the step, well, they were already fighting at the top of the midfield and have been, obviously 2020, they were P3, but that was in large part because Ferrari had fallen off a cliff. And so they stayed top of the midfield. They were towards that Alpine slightly outdeveloped them last year. And again, obviously, Ricciardo, was somewhat holding that team's performance back. But the thing is now, because of the cost cap, because it's the second year of this new set of regulations and everyone understands these cars a lot more, like barely anyone, like there was a few breakdowns like Mercedes, Aston Martin. There's a few cars, but like compared to last year, like nothing. Like in terms of the amount of mileage, I think there was about... I can't remember the number, but there was a significant number. I think it was like 5,000 miles in total more were done. That's probably not true, but there was a significant amount,
factually correct,
more miles done in total compared to last year's testing as well.
And it was a really weird issue as well because I get reliability issues. Like I think George had a hydraulics issue. I think Aston Martin had some kind of electrical
Alfa
issue.
Romeo gearbox.
Like that's just those components on a race car, they can go wrong. But McLaren's was like the winglets on top of the on top of the wheels. Now, that's the sort of thing that I just don't get. Like, that's the sort of thing that I'd expect last year, you know, with like the brand new regs. But they should have had that sorted by now. Like, point. I get they're pushing those components, but that's such a weird thing. And the amount of time it took away from them was crazy. And obviously, Oscar also, I think, did the least amount of miles out of any driver. And for a rookie driver, yes, he's got all the hype and he's got all this expectation and all of the accolades that you want from his junior career. But for a rookie to come in with the least amount of miles into your debut season, that is not what you want. And he was
best preparation.
And he was also the only one to spin as well. And I know that's not like, it wasn't terrible, but like it shows that he's not quite comfortable with the car. So yeah, not great, not perfect preparation for him.
And I think, you know, you look at where McLaren were, you look at how competitive the rest of the field is looking like it might be. I mean, in a lot of people's, and we'll maybe in a bit we'll do like our full, you know, best to worst ranking of the teams. But a lot of people have put them towards the back because you think Haas, you know, Williams, Alfa Romeo, these teams, it's not just about, everyone's going to improve, but it's how you improve relative to everyone else. And it's like last season, the issues that McLaren had at the start of the year testing, they were clearly not like, they clearly had a good car. There were just issues from testing in terms of understanding the car. And then that made Bahrain a really poor result. But then what Imola, which was round 4, 5, whatever it was, you know, Lando got on the podium. Yeah. So they still had a good package. The problem is now all these other teams seem to be catching up. And then comes the question, and this is what I've said this, I feel for Lando because he's started at McLaren, his F1 career, and they've supported him through, and he's got to this stage where he does need to make a decision. And it's, does he stick with McLaren, that project's long term, and believe that they will deliver him a title winning competitive car eventually? Or does he, because, you know, the kid's crazy quick, like he's put himself on the map and he will get these opportunities if he really wants, whether it's a Red Bull at some stage, whether it's replacing Lewis at Mercedes at some stage, I don't know. Like, that's the quandary he finds himself in, because he's proven that, I think anyway, that if you give him a top car, he will, like the amount of podiums he's converted in that McLaren is insane.
He's achieved everything he can in a midfield car. Like, yes, Russia aside, even if you think that it was his fault.
I still think that was more on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was both on, it was on both sides. But apart from that, he was the only driver to get a podium, last season outside of the top 3 teams. He's had various podiums over the years. He's had a pole position as well, Russia 2021. Yeah. So he's finished best of the rest, a few years. So he's achieved everything he can in a midfield car. And it's just like, we need to see him now under that next level of pressure of scrutiny with a race-winning car, those expectations, because I think he's built for it.
Yeah, no, I think he is as well. I think he can, because obviously, what I will say is like, the seat that he's held has been kind of like a low pressure but high pressure seat at the same time. Like, being in the midfield itself is just high pressure. There's just so many cars around. It's just dog eat dog all the time. Yeah. Daniel Ricciardo to go up against and has beaten him. But high pressure, real high pressure situation is when you're fighting for a title. And we've seen Charles Leclerc crack with that a little bit. We've not seen George crack under it when he had the opportunity to win in Brazil, but it's an entirely different pressure.
But he was still making some mistakes. Even George had a few kind of howlers like last season. He had that kind of stretch of like 3-4 races. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it takes a long time to. I think it takes longer than maybe we give credit for a driver to really get all of the years under their belt to become that well-rounded race driver. Like, I feel like Max last season, that was his first year where I just felt like, and I just felt like he just didn't put a foot right in it. I feel like he had everything, and his decision making, and maybe it's easier to make those decisions when there's not quite as much pressure of, like in 2021 when Lewis was breathing down his neck the whole season. But like, I just feel like, what was it? I think it's Franz Tost. I think there's a quote from him saying like, and he heads up AlphaTauri, and he was saying like, you need to like to really, it's 3 years. If after 3 years you're not like consistently, you're not like 95% of the way there, then
you're not making it.
You're not making it. You know what I mean? Because after that, then it's like diminishing returns. You see big development in your first year, a bit more in second, and then it's just like incremental improvements, but that's what it takes to be successful.
And I think, to be fair, I can equate that to Lando because he started in 2019. I think 2021, like that first year up against Ricciardo when Sainz left, I think he took a really big jump up from 2020 to 2021. That was the year for me where I know Ricciardo got the win, But Lando was incredible. He was, I'm never going to forget this, like in midway through the season during Hungary, like after the Hungarian Grand Prix, he was third in the championship. He was ahead of Perez and ahead of Bottas after the Hungarian Grand Prix, which again is just before the summer break. That is nuts. And so the guy, when he was given a really good car, he was like troubling the likes of Bottas and, Perez in
the
a
race where Bottas went bowling.
And literally took out Perez, took out Max.
I remember he'd been on a run of like 18 races in a row scoring points, I think, up until that point.
But again, that's that's not 3 or 4 races into the season. That's halfway through, third in the championship. So but and again, this was really cool about me and Tommo did our live show yesterday. We actually got to ask fans, we don't know what's going to happen in Red Bull, the whole driver situation, it's year to year. I don't care how many years like Perez is given a contract for, it's a year to year kind of thing. And like, if it doesn't work out next year and like potentially, they are looking at replacements, we actually did ask a bunch of like kind of, fans, F1 fans, if you were Lando Norris, if you got the chance to go into Red Bull in 2024 as Max's number 2, would you go for it? And there was like 70% of the people put their hands up like, yes, you take that chance. Even up against Max as a kind of number 2, so to speak, you would go straight away if you were Lando. Like 70% of the people put their hand up. So people feel like Lando needs to be in a race-winning car, whatever the circumstances.
That's interesting though. Do you guys think that? Because I obviously do hear it from the sense of like, ultimately you're just going to be in a race-winning car. Like from a straight just swap perspective of performance, you're going from a McLaren, which is going to be top of the midfield at best seemingly for next season, to a car that just dominated last year, won the Constructors, won the Drivers' Championship, whatever. But obviously, I still maintain that the only man who can really extract the most out of a Red Bull design the way that it is Max Verstappen. It's so light to drive. It's a car that is like, you almost have to, if you've driven anything else, you have to relearn how to drive a Formula 1 car, which is why we've seen Sergio Perez struggle, why we've seen established like younger drivers like Albon and Gasly struggle as well.
And then succeed afterwards. Like they
succeed anywhere else they were other than that. So from Lando's perspective, would there be a little bit of trepidation there? You don't want to go and like ruin your stock. Get slapped about by Max Verstappen.
You're right. I mean, you see,
not that saying that would happen. He's a very good driver.
But it could. Like
in that
no one's
specifically.
Yeah, no one's infallible to it. I mean, you look at when even staying in the same team. I mean, you go Vettel from 2013 to 2014. He clearly didn't get along with that Red Bull anywhere near as well as he did the previous generation. Look at Ricciardo when he went from Renault to McLaren. Like, you can be, there's certain drivers, like this is where I think Alonso puts himself right up there, because he just seems to be able to drive everything. Doesn't matter what type of car you give him quick. And you're right, that would be a risk for Lando. I think that,
because we haven't seen that adaptability from Lando yet, because he hasn't been kind of at
he hasn't had the opportunity to showcase it, I guess.
But maybe that's the opportunity. Maybe this is it. Like, if he has the confidence that I don't care who it is in the other car. Like, if you want to win a world championship, there is no easy route to it. Like, no, there is. Even when you have a dominant car, like with Rosberg, for example,
still got to beat your teammate.
You have to beat Hamilton.
But then the 21 and the 22 cars were very fundamentally different cars.
And
he managed to still have that same gap to Daniel as well, which I thought was like, that was Daniel's opportunity. I felt like it's new generation of cars, fresh slate. But I mean, then there's clearly, like, drivers talk about this, like the cars having, even across generations, having similar philosophies, because they're built by the same team at the end of the day. So they've got certain characteristics. But I'm not so sure that him moving to like a Red Bull would be the right move.